And introduce yourself and list a few of your wrestling credentials.
Oh, my name is Franklin Gomez and wrestle for Puerto Rico. Grew up in Puerto Rico and then wrestled for Michigan State. And now I'm here Penn State with the Indian Land Wrestling Club. Been there for a few years and just going at it. And yeah, I feel like I have a lot of ups and downs, but I'm blessed to just still be there.
One of the legends in the last 20 years of wrestling. I mean, everyone knows the name Franklin Gomez, but tell us about growing up in Puerto Rico and what that was like.
Yeah, I was mainly Puerto Rico is tropical and it's very it's you do a lot of things in outdoors, at least where I grew up, and I was always outside in bicycles. My father died when I was 6 years old, so my mom was working. My three brothers, so she was working, and we were just basically going to school. But then my older brother would take care of us, and so we were just kind of like free. So I would be bicycling around. I would just kind of always outside learning things, seeing how the streets would move, the good, the bad. So that's kind of how basically a little of my journey. And I had some really good friends. And then later on I started wrestling when I was about 12 years old because a friend invited me to a wrestling club and I didn't know what that was. I thought it was like the WWE or something weird like that.
And what was like so growing up single mom, I'm sure I've read that it was kind of a tough environment. What lessons did you learn from your mom growing up in that kind of environment?
Well, my mom is like some people ask me like who I looked up or who's my hero, wrestling hero, or I didn't watch no video, no nothing. I didn't know any superstars or Kale, whoever they might be. I didn't know any of those people. But my mom, I remember waking up early in the morning, just working minimum wage, and I don't know. She would always get up early, and then we have food ready. She would have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and she was just single. I remember seeing that she wasn't more much of a like speaking into us, but her actions spoke a lot louder. So I think she's like my main like I would say my main motivator of like example, working hard, and she just man, she did that all kind of by herself really, and it was. I remember times where I would stay with a friend of her, and then I didn't know what was happening, but sometimes you have to work double shift, and I didn't know that. But then later on, I realized what it was. But yeah, just seeing that just kind of made me like appreciate getting up early, working hard, and things like that. So it was kind of already in me without much said.
So is it one of those situations where like you and your brothers were kind of raising each other?
I would say not quite because she was there. She wasn't working double shift all the time. She just did like maybe once or twice. She was there. I remember just like um just being with my brothers a lot, and also I remember just for example going to school, and like I remember school would be a long time being there. It was a lot of interactions, and just it wasn't really by ourselves. And then sometimes we have like we go visit family members and things like that. So it wasn't a story of like we were just by ourselves, but like we make it through. None of that. No, it was just like my mom working hard and like us just adapting to a new environment because I was actually born in the Dominican Republic, but after my father passed away, we moved to Brooklyn, and then after a year we moved to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So
And
it's
did you live in
a lot of transition. I just kind of leave all that out because it's too much info.
did
We
you
could be
grow
here all day. We could be here all day talking about so many things.
and when you found wrestling, like was it a structured club or was it like what was the situation?
So in Puerto Rico, the wrestling is not that big at all. Maybe like at the time there was probably three, four clubs, but Club Sparta is in San Juan, and the coach is from Cuba, and he was just I didn't know anything about wrestling. I just kind of like my friend just took me there. I show up, and I was just like, really don't know what it is. What attracted me the most was they were doing a lot of acrobats and they had a lot of games. I remember playing a lot of games. So I went and talked to my mom. I was like, Mom, I like to be outside and do things outside. This could be a good way of me staying like in one area instead of being wandering around. And she kind of came and saw the wrestling. She didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that was either. But I convinced her because it was kind of like a place so you can play and whatnot. Obviously, all those games were kind of geared towards wrestling, and so yeah, it was kind of like I have no idea what was happening. I just did it because it was just like something fun.
And this was a club situation, and you said the coach was Cuban. So I mean, everyone knows the great tradition that Cuba has. What was the coach like?
Oh, just he was very fun to be around, and at the same time very strict, and so it kind of helped me get a little more structure. And because my father passed away, he kind of became kind of like a father figure. And so
Wow.
I just remember, like, in our story, Jaime Espinal, another friend of mine, like a brother to me, like, there's like a small circle of us that we all grew up in that wrestling club, and we still today, like, still in contact. And one common denominator we all had was like, a lot of us didn't have our fathers, like some people were, father weren't present, but just kind of like this group was very unique, and I didn't know much about it. I just came in like they've been practicing for 5 years, so I was just one more. But I just like the environment, just like the competition. But I wasn't dreaming about anything. I was just like, oh, it's a good place so I can hang out.
And you said there's a group of you guys. What were some of the other guys in the group?
There's a, we were like, I mean, at the time, there was about like 40 guys, and we are like in a very small room. Like, I'm talking about like, I mean, like half a wrestling mat type of stuff. And there was a lot of people
What?
that, yeah, like half a whole full wrestling mat. And there was another half of that, but like, and they were split into big guys and like little kids and bigger guys. And I remember just like they would make it work because they would have one group go forward, then the other one. It was just kind of like just making the best of what we had. And it was I didn't think about what we had. It was small or big. It was just super fun just to be there, play all those games, and I realized people were taking me down. I didn't know. Okay, wait, I'm supposed to not let them take me down. I didn't know what that is. So that's kind of how my introduction, and the coach really helped me a lot because he was like his work ethic was really like he was just always like there, like a lot of good influence from him.
And then when did you come to the States for the first time to wrestle? At like Fila Cadets or something like that?
Yeah, so I wrestling around 12, so about when I was about 16. I just 4 years later, I so in those 4 years I made a big leap in wrestling. Just like I would stay after practice and just I remember after every practice I have to do the coach would tell me I have to do 10 ropes. So I would do 10 ropes after practice and like I didn't lift it that much weight, but those ropes was like, man, it was hard. And I remember getting stronger. And then like Puerto Rico wrestling is so small that our goal was to train all year round so we can go to one tournament, which was Fargo.
Wow.
We didn't like, I remember competing maybe one or two times in Puerto Rico. And there wasn't that much competition really. But for me, it didn't matter we have because remember my reason wasn't I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I want to be the best in Puerto Rico. I want this mentality of like I want to be the best. I had zero of that. I just want to just learn, continue growing, and like have fun. Really.
And so when you're getting ready for Fargo, what was your training routine? Were you like doing running and that kind of stuff or
Yeah, I was doing two practices a day when I was already three. So I was 12, 14. I was 14. I started doing two practices a day because I gradually moved to like the more advanced guys. And those were doing two practices a day. I remember waking up early, and my mom would wake me up before she go to work. So it was like a cool thing because she'd wake me up, and I would kind of eat breakfast with her, and then she'll go to work, and then she would leave me in practice, or maybe some older guy, like older guy who had a car, would come pick me up, And like we would run in the morning, we do just laps and then do a lot of exercise, and then we come in the afternoon, we do like a really hard practice. Our muscle would be sore. We were wrestling. We did a lot of technique and also we did a lot of wrestling, but always a lot of exercise at the end, like kind of Cuban style, a lot of pull ups, a lot of rope, and a lot of gymnastics. So I grew up like in the US, a lot of people wrestle kind of from far away and like fakes. And we grew up with a lot of like a diverse a combination of things, of
And was the
styles.
coach the Cuban? Was he a freestyle guy or a Greco guy?
Freestyle.
Wow, I just love that body weight training, and like you see a lot of that in Dagestan where they got the bands and the jump rope and the rope climbs. That's really all you need.
Yeah, I mean, when you go, if I don't know if you've been to Cuba, but you go there, they really don't have a lot of things there, and they might have a few pull bars and like maybe a rundown bench or something there, but they just make the best out of that, and I think it kind of related because they're Cuba. I know them guys were part of the Soviet Union, and like so unknown to me, like later on, I learned that Russians came to Cuba and kind of helped the style, and then Cubans went to Russia so they can learn. And like it was kind of cool because how did the Cuba got so good? Well, the Russian had a lot of influence too in the way they trained too, So it was kind of like, oh, I didn't pick up one and two together until later on.
Yeah, it's crazy how small Cuba is, but in the 2000s especially, they had a dynamite team that could go toe to toe with anyone. In the 2000s, they were deep.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that is how little they get paid, like $30, $40 a month or something. It's ridiculous, and like, and they make it like, yeah, I don't know. That's why a lot of them leave, because it's just they win all these medals and they still get paid very little. No, no, not too much.
Right. And so when you're training and getting ready for Fargo, what was your first experience of getting out to North Dakota and wrestling in that tournament?
Well, I was really hungry, like really hungry to wrestle because I'm training all year round, and like I'm one of the younger guys coming up. We have the older guys, which one of them is a coach now, and those guys were getting ready for Fargo and also to go to compete at Junior Worlds and things like that. And for one of us, just so imagine you have like about 30, 40 people, and then you have like a remnant of like 10 guys who are just like the top of the cream, and those guys were traveling like maybe to Worlds or something like that, but they would be training the whole year for that. Like it wasn't like, oh, let's go to compete here, let's go to this state or fight here, no, all year round. So think about this. How would a coach keep their athlete motivated? Thinking if you think about the US where people compete so often, a whole year to go to one tournament, it would be like you either like, because a lot of us we just kind of like became a melting pot. It became like not just wrestling, became kind of like a way out from the streets, a way out from bad influences and things like that, So it was like more than just like, oh, I'm just gonna train this club because I like it. It became more like a neat together family type of stuff.
I mean, think about that. To your point, you guys are training together two a days all year for
And
one
we go to
weekend.
school, and we would go to school together sometimes. Like, yeah, I
So,
remember being in school together. All the rest would be like together, and we would have sometimes fights together. That's crazy.
so you're spending 12 hours a day together if you factor in the morning workouts, the school, and then the afternoon workouts.
Yeah, it's a lot of times and a lot of training. Like we train from Monday through Saturday, nonstop.
Wow. And so when you get out there, was 2001 your first year out at Fargo when you wrestled Burak?
Uh, it, no, I think I went the year before. I went there the year before. I don't remember what I placed. Maybe like seven or eight or something like that. I remember that got me like really mad because I was like, I don't know. I didn't. No one told me I need to wrestle hard or compete anything. We didn't like. We just trained hard and like our room was getting better. Kind of like what Cuba was doing, but within each other we were getting better. And then like I came back the next year and I think I took second or lost to that guy. And first time someone was shooting 2 ankles on me, so I didn't know how to like kind of deal with that, so then it was kind of like, wow, I look forward to coming here because it was a big tournament, a lot of matches. So like I was one of the few guys in my group, my pack, who was able to withstand like match after match after match after match. A lot of them would like be really good wrestling, but they're like you wrestle 3 matches hard, your body would be like. But I was for some reason I was able to like just stay like it was nothing. I was able to consistently like keep the same intensity and pace. And so yeah, that was I think my first time. And maybe I think some people saw me there and like the word came out that I wanted to come to the US and kind of make a transition there because it was Puerto Rico wrestling was too small, it just the guys around my weight class, I was competing 3 weight class above already, 3. So I can get some
What?
competition. Because it's so small. It was only a few clubs.
So did you, knowing that you weren't competing that much, when you got to Fargo and you're wrestling against some of these top guys, how did you deal with performance anxiety? Or if you had it at all?
I didn't have anything because you only know those quote unquote top guys if you look at them in like whatever. Nowadays it's like Instagram or Flow, whatever that may be, all this hype and talk. I was just like I didn't know anyone. I was just wrestling.
Wow. Just
Why would
wrestling
I?
free like that.
Yeah, like I didn't know anything. And even to later on in my career, I would tell people not to like watch any of this stuff, not to think about like because the top guys, whoever were the top, they weren't the top before, and they were coming up slowly, like any one of us. So it's like people hype up all these people, but for me, it was just like, what? That guy hasn't lost? Oh, we'll see. We'll wrestle him then. I think all of us have lost before. I lost, so why can't he lose? So I just look at it like that. I was just like, I didn't have no pressure whatsoever. I was more worried about like making weight and things like that. Like, cause cutting weight during those time wasn't my coach wasn't that in that area wasn't that wise. I was kind of we were kind of just figuring things out as we go.
And it must have been a crazy experience to go from Puerto Rico to North Dakota in the middle of the summer. I mean, it must have been like a trip out of it too.
Yeah, it was for us. It was like, and I remember we because we got the cheapest flights and everything. So the more like straight flights directly was more expensive. So I remember flying like literally like 4, 5 airplanes to make it to Fargo because they were cheaper. And like one of them, we lost a connection, and then we're like, talk to the lady, and we had to talk in English. I didn't speak English at the time, so I understood a lot because I used to watch Cartoon Network. But like I didn't like, we would just have to figure out, and they would move us to different. We would fly to somewhere different city until we eventually made it to our destination. So it was some good times. I remember going to Chicago there, and it was like rented one van, and we fit like 18 people there in one van. Like it was. I remember
Dang.
sitting. I was because I was one of the smallest. I would sit on the trunk usually with 2 other people, and we just cutting away. It was just like yeah. We didn't. No one complained about anything. No one. It was just like we're just making the best out of this trip, man. Like you can only compare yourself if you have other reference points. It's like if you say you're poor or you're rich or whatever that means, it's because you've seen the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, how are you able to compare yourself?
Right. Man, those are cool stories to hear that and just how you guys all came together. Now, when you first moved to the States, a lot of people know you from Brandon, but I read that you went to New Jersey first. So did you move by yourself or did your family come with you when you moved?
No, I did all this move by myself. I talked to my mom before I left. My coach talked to my mom, and well, he talked to me first, and he asked me if I'm interested in coming to different place to continue getting better. I was like, yeah, yeah. I just said yes. I was like, I was kind of like looking for more challenge, because I was just too easy here. And so then he talked to my mom. I talked to my mom. My mom wasn't sure, and then my mom talked to him and says, "If Franklin would have been your son, what would we have done?" And then he said, "I would have sent him." And then that was because my coach was very respectful. Like, my mom respected him too. So I guess my mom somehow trusts me. I thought I was gonna behave. I wasn't gonna fight or anything like that. Like I was gonna like if you gave me an opportunity, like I was gonna like basically make her proud, like try to help the family. And so I kind of convinced my mom too. And so they spoke with like my coach talked to someone, that person talked to someone, and they make the connection and eventually in Saint I went to St. Augustine Prep, which is in Richland, New Jersey. I don't even know how the connection was,
So
but
did you know where you were going when you left? Like,
no idea. I just said I was going to school to wrestle. It's a good opportunity, so I showed up there, and they picked me up in the airport, and I was just like went to a rich school like this. You have to wear a tie. It's like a. I was just like I went from like just from a public school in Puerto Rico where like it was kind of bad, like you can have to worry about fighting and things like that to like a really private school with all these rich kids coming in BMWs and things like that.
and you also you were just learning English at the same time, right?
Yes, I was struggling a lot because although I understood a lot, I couldn't convey or express myself as well. I was speaking a lot of like caveman language.
That had to be a crazy experience, like a really challenging experience, but it had to be
Very
like a
challenging.
culture shock.
Yeah, yeah. I remember people. Yeah, It was a culture shock. I mean, yeah, yeah. I would even see people bringing drugs to school, and like I was just like, man, this is crazy. And like, yeah, it was different. I remember, yeah, and the coach that I was wrestling there was they have no idea anything about wrestling. He was more like a football coach, so they just kind of put him into coach wrestling
Oh
because they didn't have
no.
they didn't have a wrestling coach, and then like so I remember I didn't make no much progress in wrestling. I was locking hands. I was trying to make the transition to folk style, but I was always locking hands. He really wasn't that good. However, when I talked to my coach on the phone, I told him, "Hey, I think I should be back because I should go back because this is not good." He told me, frankly, I think you should stick it there because it was halfway through. Stick it because that way you pick up the English. It will help you eventually. He says sometimes in life you lose some things, but you gain other things. So that might help you later on. So I stood there for the whole year, and then I went back to Puerto Rico, and then the same thing happened. Ended up in Brandon, Florida. Again, I didn't know anything about Brandon either. I didn't know. I have no idea anything.
How do you just leave and not know where you're just going along for the ride? I mean, it's just a
For
crazy thing to imagine how scary that must have been.
uh, for who? For someone who has everything in your house, family working to come and you eat with your family. Maybe you have or for me it was more like an opportunity to help my family.
Yeah.
It depends how you look at it. If you I don't know how you grew up with your family, but like if your dad and your mom are involved, one of them is not dead, or both of them are not dead, like it makes it a bit different. And if they're good parents, they're gonna probably support you, guide you in the right direction. It makes a big difference. I saw my mom working early, and I'm like, nah, this doesn't add up. But I need to do something about this. So the best way I can help her is by taking advantage of those opportunities and using wrestling kind of like a tool as to continue in higher education and things like that.
Right.
And that was actually like encouraged by my coach.
And how different was Brandon to the school in New Jersey?
Woo, they have girls there, you know. So I went to a boys' school in New Jersey, and then I went to like a public school. You know, you sit in the cafeteria with girls as well, and yeah, definitely a lot of Hispanic people too. So you make friends and like, but I don't know. Everywhere I went, there was a lot of drugs too there in the schools. So I was kind of always confused. Why would people like use drugs? Maybe because I seen drugs, I seen people in the streets like that, and I remember saying like, man, I don't want to do that because of this and that. Like I was conscious of it, and also my mom took us to church, and it was a lot of good message, about
Hmm.
Jesus, the Bible, and everything. Like I remember not knowing much about that, but like I remember listening to the Word of God, and it was kind of like indirectly, I think it was soaking into me and being like, okay, I need to distinguish what was good and bad, was wrong and was good. So kind of, yeah, I just saw a lot of friends who in Puerto Rico in the U.S. who just kind of like, I don't know. For me, I was just so thankful, so blessed to be in Brandon or New Jersey that I was gonna be like, I'll do everything I can so I can continue getting better in wrestling and take advantage of this great opportunity. So I would take it as a like with a grain of salt of like so thankful to be there and like so that's what I mean. Like it depends. Like for me, I think it became kind of like a blessing the way I grew up because kind of helped me appreciate things even more than most people
Right.
because growing being born in the Dominican Republic, if you go to the Dominican Republic, there's a lot of rich people and there's a lot of poor people. Then in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of same thing and similar structure. And then coming to the US, boom, a lot of people have a lot of opportunities, have a lot of things. It's just kind of like, it's just different. And I know people in the US, a lot of people are grateful too. But like in my case, I was just like, I cannot afford to like not be grateful for all this.
And then how did you go from that to Michigan State? Because I mean, you won, for folks who don't know, '05, an amazing summer, double champ, one of the top high school wrestlers in the country, number one at 119, and you end up at Michigan State. But I'm just curious, how did you get there?
Well, I remember when I was being recruited, I told people like if you're gonna like recruit me, you're gonna offer me some percentage. Don't even bother because I don't have no money. My mom don't have no money to pay anything, zero. But I was obviously thankful because I was getting full rides, here and there. But I wasn't trying to go to any place north because it was cold. And I didn't know much that in the north there's a lot more wrestling than in the south at the time.
Right.
But like some people explained to me a little bit about that, but I was thinking more like a warmer place in between, and I just Rocky Kosar ended up going to Michigan State, and Russ Kosar, my coach from high school at the time, asked me to go take a visit at least, and I was just like, okay, I'll do it, coach, I'll do it for you, like I respect you a lot, so I was considered. So I went there, and I remember I went to several recruiting trips, different universities, and I told them like, don't offer me no alcohol, no girls, none of that stuff. I'm really serious here about wrestling. And they
Wow.
didn't. A lot of people didn't really like listen to that. The moment they took me to a place where there were like people drinking or something like that, I was like, I'm not coming here. I didn't know anything about the coaches. You know,
Right.
same thing. I didn't know anything if the coaches were good or bad or anything. I was just like, if you don't offer me alcohol, if you don't like, I said I believe in Christ too, and I like to grow in my relationship with God, and then learn more about what that really means and compared to everything else, blah blah. I don't want to like be in
Right.
that environment, And Michigan State was the only one who did that, so that's why I went there.
And then
They took me to a bowling. I went bowling with the guys. It was good.
who took you on your recruiting trip? The Simmons brothers?
No, no, no. Tim Hammer. This guy is an awesome guy. Tim Hammer was one of them. Yeah, yeah. He's the main person I remember. But I remember we were in the car going to the bowling place, and they were singing like this song's like girls just wanna have fun. They're all like singing it to their lungs. And I'm thinking I'm in the car because it was tight, it was a lot of us. I was like, man, these guys are crazy, you know. But like for me, it felt like crazy in a good way, not like crazy as in wild, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just that's kind of why the main reason I wasn't. There's a story around there that I went there because I didn't know if it was gonna be like because I thought it was gonna be warm there or something like that. No, I knew it was gonna be cold. I didn't know how cold it was gonna be, but I knew it was gonna be really cold.
Was that a shock when you felt your first Michigan winter?
It was a little man. I was like, how do people live here? You know, there's no one outside. The trees are naked, and I was just like, and then you go to the buildings, and there was like people there. Like there was like everything was happening normal. I was just like, I would remember like driving or walking. It was like barely no one outside. I'm thinking, see, this is very depressing. And then you go to like the places, there would be like a world happening inside. And I remember, wow. So I remember thinking, if they can make it, I can make it.
And
So
I watched your Hall of Fame speech at Michigan State, and you said that you spent a lot of time at the Smith Center once you got there. And I'm just curious, what kind of facility is that? Is it like a study hall place or a?
yeah, it's like I don't know if they were like the pioneer of that, probably not, but like I remember that there a lot other universities weren't as like barely had anything like that. They might have like a small room or something, but they had like a humongous building. Basketball player donated. Smith, he donated in the name of his mom like this to this building for the athletes, and I met him personally too. It was a great honor to meet him too,
Wow.
um, and I remember being there again and like giving us tutors. I remember some of the guys, some of the wrestlers were like, man, I don't want no tutors. I remember thinking like, what would you want no tutors? It will help you to your school. So I remember scratching my head. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, and then some guys obviously didn't need no tutor because they were like on point, you know. But like there was a lot of offer for all the classes. All the classes you can have someone who can help you with that. So in the beginning I was very like the coaches were kind of worried that I was because of my English that I was gonna struggle. But no, I just didn't like I didn't struggle, but it was mainly because of the Smith Center too, because a lot of help, and I would just go to all the sections, to everything. I would just study. I was just quietly doing my thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so like you're just like amazed that people weren't going there and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm like, why? And then you have people who have a lot of bad grades, but they will not want to go. And I remember like thinking like, I don't understand you guys. Like, why would we not go, dude? Like, and I remember a guy who asked me to write a paper for him. And I remember my first English paper I did, like it was filled with blood and ink and how many wrong past tense, like all this correction. And I remember like I remember saying, looking at him, and be like, dude, you must be out of your mind. I'm like I barely know how to write English, and you want me to write paper for you? You like you must be like. Well, I think it's because he saw me. I show up at class every time, and I was like really determined to learn, you know, and like. But I remember, dude, I don't understand. Like, I'm speaking a single second language here, and I'm like having better grades than you. You should be like embarrassed. I tell him like you should be embarrassed, you know.
Wow. So you're all business when you get there. And I just had Nick Simmons on the podcast. How often were you working out with Nick and Andy Simmons when you got to Michigan State?
Yeah, I think in the beginning we were for sure working out um quite often. It's just I think maybe Andy was maybe less because he was bigger. I was 125, he was 41, but man, those 140 he wrestled 141, but when I wrestled him, he felt like 157. Like I don't know what happened. Maybe, but then I realized maybe because obviously he had more experience, and also maybe when I started wrestling in the beginning of the season, he wasn't cutting that much weight. I don't know something. He would feel like super strong. That guy was like he felt really strong like in the beginning, and then like, but yeah, I would work out with them. They'll be like really good training partners for sure.
I mean, Nick Simmons is, one of the most decorated guys to never win a title, and his high school record's insane. And I'm just trying to think through. So 2007 was your first year in the lineup. He was up at 133, and you're down at 125. I can just imagine you two guys going at it though. That must have been awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely we scrap a lot. We scrap a lot. He's really good. He's like an octopus, man. He will wrap you around, and it will be. I struggled to get him from, escape. Um, I got better as like I didn't get turned much or anything like that, but it was yeah. I might sometimes be close, but he would be like do something weird or like and like kind of still be on it, like super good, super good.
I mean, you were
Yeah,
learning folk style as you're going too. That had to be an experience.
yeah. I wrestled only folk style those 2 years in high school, and that was it. No, I was wrestling freestyle the whole
Wow.
time.
And then your freshman year at 125, you're having a great year. And at Big Tens, you went 0-2 and didn't qualify for the national tournament. How big of an impact was that on you for the rest of your career?
Oh yeah, that was definitely a life-changing moment for sure because I remember the last guy I lost to was a guy from Ohio State and I beat him like 15-0. I remember I didn't let him off the little circle. Like we didn't go out of bounds not one time. We were just like I was just on fire, and I lost to him like and I think maybe my body was trying to grow, around that time, so it was harder for me to make the weight. I was making the weight, but I wasn't recovering as well. And most of my losses came that year, actually. I lost like maybe like 7 or 8 matches straight or something like that. I don't remember. I remember that made me rethink about like what's the purpose of life and things that really matters because I remember going to church. I would go to church sometimes just to hear a good sermon, how I normally would. But then someone, the youth pastor asked me, Franklin, you look down, man. You look sad. I was like, yeah, I am. I don't know. I'm working hard, wrestling. I'm not partying. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. So like, I don't know why everything kind of like falling apart. Obviously, what I thought was important, which my world was that. And they asked me, well, how's your relationship with God? Is it real? Is it tangible in your life? And I didn't know how to answer that because I was just like, I just come to church. It was the first time that I hit a wall in terms of like defining who God is in light of like what was happening. Because I was like, I don't want to come here and listen to all these happy, clappy people and then go outside and be like struggling with things. And I was just like, so I went into a journey of like, just kind of like, they quoted Matthew 6:33 that says, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added onto you. The context is more about clothing and nothing's gonna like you're not gonna lack anything. But I was like, man, that means if I just focus on God, everything else is gonna like fall in place or something like that. So I went on a long journey to just kind of like I went to start going to Bible study, asking the hard questions and being like, are you guys believing this? Like if someone comes with forgiveness, why would I forgive someone who come and murder my family? I want to do them, and they're like that. It turned into like a long conversation, which it was good because it was like it wasn't me who's gonna forgive that person, but somehow God in me doing the work, and I was like, okay, amen, hallelujah, because I'm not gonna do it, and it was just like. So then I realized because of my wrestling background, I was doing everything on my strength, everything. So I don't need God because I'm self-sufficient in that sense, and I was using God as a good fortune teller type of stuff. And then I didn't realize that having a relationship with God was actually something like ongoing, like learning about Him and like also knowing what's good, what's bad, and not just go to life thinking that I'm a good person when I'm my own standard. When it was just like a long journey. Ultimately, that helped me change my perspective with wrestling.
How did it
The
make you change
next,
your wrestling on? How did it make you change your perspective on wrestling?
well, because I was happy when I won, really happy because I'm training. Like, yeah, the rewards, yeah. But inside, I was happy. I was never like type of like screaming or anything. But if I lost, I was kind of sad because I was like, I just thought that this was, you know, fulfilling. I never questioned why I wrestled to begin with. Am I wrestling because the coach told me I can be good? Am I wrestling because why? Just to win a title, or what is that gonna do? Is it gonna give me purpose, life? Is it gonna be like, am I gonna be happy? What if So I started like questioning that, and then I realized the reason why I wrestle is because like I am like a made in God's image, so whatever we do, the Bible says whatever we do, we should do it with as if we're doing unto the Lord. So I should do it in an excellent manner. But the winning and losing is the tricky part because the world tells you like it's all about that kind of thing. You train for that. But in reality, you and I were talking about the stories, the van, and like me lifting the pull-ups, like the environment growing up. And I think that's what ultimately really matters, like the journey that you go through, like the winning and losing. Like now they're not talking about me much. I'm surprised I'm here talking to you. Now they're talking about who's the next and the next and the next. So it's like I think like you gotta wrestle and do the best you can, but don't be so fixated in wrestling. Has to be the all in all. I was just like so consumed. Wrestling became an idol, and I didn't see that until later on. And then I started working on it. And I'm still working on it. Like the definition of winning, success is
Right.
is 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 challenging because I know guys who are like really talented, but they got a big serious injury and they didn't go farther. But who would have known what if they would have accomplished, right? So it's like, and then like if you live your life sad because you could have, like, so yeah, that's kind of how I think it helped me see wrestling. So the next year I was like, I'm cutting weight. There's this mentality, you gotta cut weight, you gotta cut weight. I'm just gonna go up and enjoy wrestling. So I went up, and I remember feeling a lot better. My perspective was a lot different. I'm like, when I win or lose, my focus is gonna be just on wrestling my best, and I'm gonna enjoy whether I win or lose. I'm gonna try to enjoy even when I lose. I want to try to enjoy that. I remember being like so free
Wow.
because of
Even
that.
enjoy it when you lose almost.
Yeah, because it's a deep mystery because you can glorify God even when you lose. So that makes a big difference, because ultimately, like, think about this, Brian. When you and I in our deathbed, you think they're gonna be like, "Yeah, bring that podcast we had with you, like, bring me those medals, bring me those trophies. What do you want? What would you like if you're in bed?" Most likely, like, what will you want? Let me ask you that question to you.
What would I want in terms of like what to take with
You-
me?
You're about to die there. You're laying in bed. What will you like? Are you gonna be like, bring me that trophy, the championship? Like, what do you want? What would you like to have? What would you like to talk about?
I
What
would
would
just want to have my family with me.
right? So, which in a nutshell, it implies relationships.
Right.
So so all of a sudden we're like so fixated into something, and what really matters is the relationships, even through the whole journey. So I re
Wow.
so I was just like, that was so like, that's like the wisdom of God there, like helping me see wrestling for what it is. Even though tomorrow I'm gonna go practice and be like, maybe the coach will be, "No, you gotta work in it so you can win. You gotta want it more than you breathe," and like all this.
You
So it's
weren't buying
like,
into all that.
no, I was trying to just have a balance, even though it's hard, because think about it, it's like sometimes they say if you take second place is worse than taking third because you were so close to the first, right? And the third place work his way up to third place. It's kind of almost like a better. They did a study that the second place in the Olympics felt the worst than the third place. He felt the worst. He felt like he didn't want none of that.
Wow.
So like again, it's about like a perspective that is gonna last forever. Ultimately, when you're in Beth, you're in your deathbed, or it might be. We want relationship. The things that really matter is our relationships. Wrestling is a tool to bring the best out of us. The things that God instilled in us. We could be doing something else. It would be the same. We would have to do our best we can. It would bring it's a tool to bring the best of us. And then guess what? When you and I do our best, it becomes like an art. We become like, wow, look at that move. Oh, look at that. We become artistic. It almost becomes like amazed. And guess what? We're amazed of the creation of God, what he's doing, the creation of excellence, you know?
I'm feeling inspired right now.
Hey man.
This is good
So
therapy right now.
hey,
Wow.
that was happening during those times. Imagine me thinking like that and like trying to live like that and be like, only wrestling, wrestling is not everything, frankly. You're more than wrestling. You're more than wrestling. You're more than wrestling. I'm a child of God. I gave my life to Christ. I surrender everything to Him. You changed me, Lord. I don't want to be thinking about who I'm going to wrestle. Who is this? You take care of the ranking. People are going to talk about it. I just want to wrestle and do my best. That's all.
So knowing that's where you came from on that journey, what did it feel like in 2009 when you did win your first NCAA title?
Yeah, I felt, like I think I felt good, but I don't think I didn't feel that much different than the third I took the year before. The third I feel after, because again,
Really? Yeah.
yeah,
We were
I
just talking
actually I
about
actually I actually remember taking third place the first time, because when you take third place, the match is over, so you have to sit and watch the first place. And I remember me like just like being like all of a sudden like so like joyful, and like I was laughing to myself. I was sitting by myself and I remember like, man, what is happening to me? I'm going crazy here. I actually feel like I'm rejoiced that I'm like, see, I'm here watching those guys. Which, think about this, Ryan. For you to feel like you're joyful just being there, watching the guys who just beat you wrestling and enjoying that, I think it's something of God, because I mean, I would have been like, I gotta beat that guy, or I'm gonna wrestle, I gotta get ready for that guy. So like when I took first place, I just felt like a really awesome, like a big sense of gratitude. And when I took first, I just felt a big sense of gratitude too. I was like, man, it's just because it's a lot that goes through it. You're not always like in perfect condition when you wrestle. You might have a tweak here and there. And then one of the third place, my last one, my back was hurting really bad. I couldn't bend. I didn't even warm up for that third match. I remember,
wow.
God, just help me like do my best, whatever, just help me. And I remember being like, man, I just let it rip. Like I was still in pain, but I was able to wrestle well. And things like that, yeah, you're not gonna be able to see like,
You would never know that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I just a lot of sense of gratitude, a lot of sense of being in the US, taking advantage of this opportunity, my journey, all the stuff we've been talking about coming together and like
Wow.